Yes, there's letting go, but perhaps before I get to letting go, there's, of course, the marriage that was, and getting to the point that you have tried all that you tried your best to fix the marriage or put the differences, aside and just working it out with your partner. But getting to a point when now you have sorted it out by yourselves, okay, by a professional counselor or even a church elder or relatives, but it did not work, that's the time we can say now is good to let go.
All right. You mentioned church elder, and I'm curious. Percy, what does the Bible say about all this? Because as Christians, we are always reluctant when it comes to, when you're announcing a wedding in the church, hey, everyone is, ululating there, everyone is happy about this wedding. But when you're mentioning about divorce, it's hush-hush, even in the church. How have things changed? What does the Bible now say about matters divorce, ending a marriage?
Yeah, of course, that's a big subject. It's a big question. And I think the main question I hear all the time is whether the Bible approves divorce, or whether it endorses it. And that is a matter that was actually brought before Jesus. He was asked, Moses, he was told, these guys, the Pharisees came to Jesus and told him, look, Moses allowed us to divorce our wives, give them a letter of divorce or something like that. So what do you have to say about this? And Jesus responded to that matter. And basically he told them, look, Moses allowed you to divorce your wives because of the hardness of your heart. So basically he said, no, it's down to you guys. It's down to the individual. So marriage is a very personal, marriage in and of itself is a covenant between two people. So, and however you start it, once you go into a marriage and you have an actual marriage and there are children out of it or something like that, if you start thinking about dissolving that and divorcing and all that, it gets very, very complicated. So basically Jesus was saying it has to do with the heart.
Right. So probably someone is watching you right now and they're saying, let me call Percy and confirm if it's Percy I'm looking at.
Yeah. So sorry, somebody is trying to interrupt us.
No problem, Percy. Even as you continue, remember you can always talk to us at TV47 News, that is on Twitter, 2047. I'm curious, your feedback, your questions. My question would be, we've had this a number of times. Marriage is an institution. How is it an institution, Percy?
I don't think, okay, so if you have to define what you mean by an institution, because an institution is, you create an institution for purposes of perpetuating a certain idea or a program, so you institutionalize. So the Bible, for example, the church itself is an institution to the extent that it's perpetual, and so it doesn't die with the members. If the members die off, the church doesn't, expire. So it is an institution, it's perpetual. So marriage, in that sense, then a marriage is perpetual. It's been with humanity since the beginning. And you know very well what Genesis, I'm assuming you do. It's one thing to assume Kenyans read the Bible, but it's another thing whether they read it or not. But Genesis obviously lays out the beginning of marriage. So marriage is part of the human experience. So you could call it an institution to that extent.
Right.
That doesn't mean that all marriages work and that marriage in itself is free from trouble, confusion, divorce, even murders and death and all that. So that's what I would say about that.
And the fact that you mentioned Genesis, now for the genesis of this conversation, in Kenya, Oshira, how popular is the idea of a divorce?
From my point of view and from the observation, since I am on the ground, and we say in the ground there is what people expect, but going to the ground, things
vitu ni different.
Yeah, there's a lot of divorces going on currently in Kenya. Yeah, very high.
Maybe if you talk numbers, how many? Even in 2023, maybe, for example.
Okay, perhaps I haven't captured the percentage, but what I can say, since I also work with people who have gone through separation and divorce, we have a program for them. Per one cohort, we take between 70 and 100 people, both men and women, who are coming in to be helped, after going through separation and divorce. And per year, we do like 2 cohorts, and this is only one center in Nairobi. You can imagine now everywhere else.
Right.
Yeah, so the rate has really gone high, and it has become a concern even to us. But the question I know that we have been asking, is it that the divorce rate has gone high, or is it that people have become more aware? They are not keeping quiet on it. They are coming out, they need help. It could be either side. Yeah, either way. Yeah, so, but the rate has gone high. And one of the things perhaps I can point out, there is it's one thing to know how to let go, but it's totally different and difficult to know when is the time to cut the cord. And that's why you may find you are there, or you are there and you are not there. But there are so many reasons. From where I see it, I can say it's just not good to staying there for the reason of staying there, especially when you get to lose your authenticity, because that's very important in a marriage or a relationship. You need to be you, and the other person need to respect that. But getting to a point that you need to compromise on many aspects of your life or relationship, then something is wrong. You need to rethink that. You need to just see how to go about that.
Allow me to take you back to the whole demographics you're mentioning. Men, women. You're also mentioning areas, the cohort in even the center in Nairobi only. We'll get to when is the right time later on. Mention, because I'm pretty sure you've dealt with a number of cases, not only in Nairobi but different parts of the country. Which areas would you get a number of divorces? Does it depend on maybe from where someone comes from? What are the factors?
Okay, I would say especially the most modern areas or developed, perhaps like you can compare Nairobi and in the village. In Nairobi, the rate is very high. And this is the reason. You see, even for the women, they are getting to understand, I do not have just to be, a housewife, I have a career, I'm pursuing my career, I'm pursuing to be a better person in marriage. So you find with time, they get to understand who they are in a marriage. They just don't compromise or just, lose their authenticity for the sake of that. And you find with that reason, in the city or the modern areas, the rate is a bit high compared now in the countryside.
Right.
Yeah.
But see, even as we chime in on this, the whole demographics, men, women, who are more likely to maybe seek for divorce?
Okay. I have not studied the demographics and the numbers.
Okay.
I would need to look at the research data at the moment. Divorce in itself in this country has not really been studied that much because it's divorce. First of all, divorce itself is a legal issue. The whole issue of dissolving a marriage.
Yeah.
I've had discussions with a lawyer, a friend of mine, who actually she's a family law lawyer, and she handles a lot of those disputes. Some for divorce, others for custody, and sharing of property. Once a marriage is dissolved, and so each marriage-related dispute is different. I think now, what I would say in general, there are more people willing to file for divorce. Now, as to whether, there are men file more than women, it varies. It varies, and sometimes it's usually a question of who beats the other to the court. So who gets agitated enough to go to the court. Often the women beat the men to the court, but and especially the U.S. I looked at the U.S. data. More divorces are filed by the women than by the men.
Right.
In fact, I think 80%, or was it 80 or 90%?
Why do you think this is the case?
I guess, in marriage, the person, when a marriage dissolves, the person who takes the greatest hit or the greatest burden is on the woman. Men, unfortunately, and that's why, I was earlier on, I was telling you that off the set, I was telling you it's important, for you young men to put your act together, because marriage, the person who carries the greatest burden of a marriage is a woman. Or rather, of course, she's the one who brings forth the babies. She nurses the babies when they are young. So if a divorce is happening, say, and the children are still young, really, it's not likely that the woman will abandon her children. And the man can go off, marry another woman, and that's why it is a problem. The person who takes the greatest share of pain and frustration is the woman, and I can understand why she's taken up that very huge task of working with women and people who are going through divorce,
right,
because they need a lot of support. They need a lot of support. So having said that, you can understand why then women, when they think that this marriage is going nowhere, and we will never reconcile, I would rather just file for divorce, get this done with, let's split our lives, let him go his way, I go my way. We can talk about children. If they are young, the law requires that, for example, that children, the primary custodian of children is a woman. So usually most children, especially if they are young, they will be in the custody of the mother. The father can seek access, and they normally will be granted. It's their right. So from a legal perspective, right now it's quite straightforward. The law is very clear right now in our country, so you can resolve most of the disputes. Yes.
So how do you now know, as she was pointing out, the time? For example, even as you're mentioning, a number of women would seek for divorce more. Even according to the U.S., in a marriage, it's between a man and a woman. The whole setup, two people there. How will they know that it is now time?
No, as a pastor, I must admit my ignorance. Yeah, because usually as a pastor, you get these things come to you, perhaps when now people they need help, support. So often at the tail end of a relationship, sometimes pastors get involved, from the point where the disputes have picked up.
How much, maybe? Because she was alluding that church elders are also involved. How much are you guys? Because as I was telling you earlier, for the preparations of a wedding, the whole church is really involved, and everyone is involved somewhere. We at a letter,
I will tell you.
At a letter. Lakini sasa kwa divorce, how much is the church and even you as pastors really involved?
I'll give you my experience. In our church, we have a very elaborate marriage counseling program. We share it among the senior pastors and some of the elders. Every single couple in our church that we marry, we take them through a 7 area program of counseling. And I think our success rate is like almost 100%, maybe 99%. We've not had any member, any couple in our church that we have counseled that have fought. Maybe the ones that have fought, they haven't come to us yet, or whoever was beaten just kept it quiet. So in other words, I'm saying, terms and conditions apply. There could be somebody, but overall, we have been very successful in counseling and preparing people for marriage. And so we don't have, especially people we have counseled, but we have also observed when we have a family coming to join us, they are already married and all that. Some of the cases we have had to deal with are people that actually didn't start their marriage, from our system. They are coming off married.
Right.
But we have also been able to reconcile and help a lot of people whose marriage were having problems, again, case by case, all right? So I wouldn't say in our church, in my experience, that we have a crisis of divorces around my circles, the circles that I do, and our church has, we have a couples, for example, a couples program, which has, how many? We have like 100 couples. Those are members of our church. They are in our WhatsApp group. And fantastic, very happy families, amazing stories. And we are talking about people who are across the age. The older couples are probably fewer. The people married between 10 and 20, like about 20 or so. The ones married below 20 years, like almost 60. So, and we have very elaborate programs for training, dinners, counseling, seminars, workshops, and things like that. So we do, instead of waiting for the divorce to come to us, we proact by keeping the devil away.
Now, the fact that you actually mentioned that, I was to ask Wachira on that, but then the fact that you now have that, do you feel like you're going to have a lower number of divorce cases? The fact that you went proactive?
So first of all, let me be clear. We've not had a single divorce in our church.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Members of our church, this is divorcing so-and-so, and it's all very nasty, very painful, and everybody's pained about it. We've not had that scenario.
Okay.
So maybe we are lucky.
As Sadra, now, as Sadra, do you go, the proactive way? Or maybe, I don't know, a whole way of identifying people who are already in a marriage and then, trying to limit it? How can even that work in our setup in the country?
The key purpose of SADREF Africa is to help the people who are already out. Yeah, and this is for the fact that we acknowledge and appreciate you are a human being. This is something that has happened. It's painful, it's a loss, and you need support just to help you process what has just happened, to help you unpack. Because in the process, many lose themselves. They lose their sanity, they lose who they are, because we say divorce is not easy. As Pastor has said, and I would want really to say, I think your church is blessed. Divorces are happening in churches a lot. So we cannot bury our heads in the sand and say it doesn't happen. It's happening. But the thing is, like, how do we support these people now? Because now they're on this other side, it has happened. And that's where now we come in. And we've gotten to a point of identifying, because in the process, even as you help them process and unpack, getting to understand the reasons, behind it. And majority, you'll find, is something that they have persevered for long. They've been in need to waiting for things to work out. They have put in work to help sort out the issues. But for them to get to a point of saying, now I'm done, is something that they have tried. So it's not a matter of that you just wake up one day and say, no, I'm done with this. It's something that you have consistently, persistently worked on it to try and make it work. But now due to that, we just got to finding some of the reasons why perhaps, it didn't go their way. And one of the main thing, and perhaps I'll point it as the reason even for anybody out there watching, you see, because where there's an abuse, perhaps emotional, psychological, physical, and is something that you have also taken time to try and address it and point it out. This is not the right way to handle things, but there is no change, or the other person, is not really keen on making it work. Of course, at that point, we cannot tell you continue staying there, because you've seen what has been happening even around, getting to a point people, they come against each other, by assaulting each other, or even others killing each other. So other than getting to that point, because we say what matters here is about you, is not, it gets to a point, your life, your safety matters most. It's not about even the marriage. So when your safety is compromised, your health, I think is a good time to say, I'm done, and let it go. Okay. So yeah, that's one thing. And perhaps to mention something else, and this is to a point you find, especially now with the partners, the other person is not keen on making you a better person, or rather they feel insecure when perhaps as a woman you're getting to grow, perhaps in career-wise, and they tend to look for all the ways of bringing you down. Okay. They get to a point of making you feel, invalidating you, right, which now gets to affect your self-esteem and also your confidence, because that's what they want to do, just to make you feel not worth. And once it gets to your head, of course, it will deteriorate you know. Yeah, so when you perhaps getting to a point and you've tried to address it, but you see the other person is not keen on just to, to uphold you, perhaps even pray for you or support you in either ways of making you a better person, or rather just encourage you to become that person who you are. So because in that area, they'll be encouraging you to lose your authenticity if they don't encourage you to be who you are, and if anything, even help you, support you to become a better person. So I think that's one area, according to my observation, I've seen. If it's something that does not go in the right way, is not good to keep on waiting.
Right. Yeah. Well, sure, hold that thought. Let's take a short break. But then I'm pretty sure one of our viewers may be watching us this morning, and they're wondering, I have recently divorced, but then how do I reach out to SADREF? They're probably wondering that right now. So stick around for that conversation. Number 2047 is our SMS number at TV47 News. My name is Nyerungita _. We'll be right back. Right, welcome back. Definitely, I was curious. So I really had to chime in a number of questions even during the break. But then, before I get you, Percy, there's a question I'd raised earlier for someone watching us this morning, and they have divorced. So how can they reach SADREF? Does it? Okay, you're mentioning that based in Nairobi.
Yeah.
So, for example, this person is in Kakamega. How can they reach your services?
Okay. SADREF Africa, you can check our website. That's www.sadref.com. And also we are on social media platforms, Facebook, SADREF Africa. And also there's a lot of work we've done. You can check on YouTube as well, SADREF Africa. We are on Instagram. So you can have a look at that. And there's also how you can get to know what you are doing and also book for sessions on the website. We have group therapies, we have healing programs, we also have one-on-one counseling session. So you can always book through the website. In the website, you can also find our contacts. So in case you'd want just to contact us, and even the email address is available in the website.
Right. Wonderful.
Okay, Percy, so how does, and not only Christianity, but religion as a whole, over the years, how has it played a role in matters divorce? Because I mean, again, as I was alluding, you'd find a number of Christians would be hush-hush about divorce, even in the church. Right now, even again, the whole Africa religion that is really there, maybe deep in the villages, how people are really brought up, they might be reluctant about matters divorce. How has it really played a role?
I think we need to decouple religion and marriage, because whether you are religious or not religious, marriage is a completely different thing. I mean, it's part of life. Even if you are an atheist and you find a good woman, you marry them. So I think religion isn't an enabler or a hindrance, to marriage, or it's driving. So you can be religious and successful in marriage. You can be non-religious and successful in marriage. So I think we can separate those. However, marriage being an institution that was established by God, that is, if you are Bible-believing Christian, then you need to believe that. So that's where it stems from, all right? So, and its success is also based on, there is a very big, your religious position, your understanding, your relationship with God has a major influence on the success or the failure of marriage. And by the way, actually, overall, if you look at the social research, married people, people who are deeply religious Christian, actually, their marriages stay longer than people who are non-Christian. So the data is actually clear. So religion, being religious and being a Christian, let me just be specific, because religion itself as a term is too broad.
Okay. So
let me a little bit be more specific. If you're Christian, you are more likely to succeed in marriage than if you are not. Okay. So that's one. Number two, not all religions regard marriage the same way. I will give you an example.
Right.
Hinduism, for example, Buddhism, Hinduism in particular, allows, for example, or even Islam allows for you having more than one spouse. Okay. By the way, something very interesting. India, when India was formed in 1947, around 1955, they wanted to put together a marriage act. They brought the act to the Senate and all that. And the Buddhists, who are the majority in the Senate, actually could not found that act, because they say this act is so Christian. It's telling us Buddhists not to marry more than one wife, and so it took them so long to vote for it.
Right.
So in other words, marriage, by the way, as we know it, is a very biblical idea, or rather, one man, one wife. That is the greatest contribution of Christianity to the world. That a man should only have one wife at any one time, and so that's the thing. So in terms of religion itself and Christian faith itself has done more to empower marriage in of itself. Okay. So, and I think as a pastor, I have seen that. I'm also a social researcher. I have, studied and looked at, political systems, religious systems, and I think that's the case.
Right. Wachira, when children are involved, it's I believe it's now dicier. Things may be complicated even more. Is that the case?
Yes, absolutely. That is the case. Okay. Because you see, these are innocent people who are put in the middle of what they do not understand. And here they love their parents, both of them. But now you put them in the middle to choose, who to go with or who to love more and all that. So the people who get most affected by a separation or a divorce are children. And this is where, as parents, if you are not careful, you might actually lose your kids and even affect their future. So when going through separation or divorce, we say it's always good to, one way, involve the children, let them understand what's going on, break it down to according to their ages. Try to let them understand what is this, what's going on. And just because most of the time they tend to blame themselves for what's going on, for the conflict or the separation. So try to make it clear it's not about them. This is me and your father or your mother. And even in the...
But at what age will you, be telling this kid? At what age maybe do they now start to understand some of these things?
We say children are human beings clothed in a small body. Yeah. But I tell you, even a 3-year-old, later they'll come to ask you something they saw happening in the home setup. So at whatever age they are in, just try to talk to them according to their age, how they can understand. And even by asking questions so that you get to understand what are they really picking from what is going on. You see, because for a 3-year or a 5-year-old, you cannot address them the same way you do to a teenager. Because for them, you just need to have a sitting. This is what is going on. We are not getting along, but it's not about you. I love you. Your father loves you. So can we, respect me, respect your father, and just have that, understanding. So it becomes easier when you involve them, other than assuming they do not understand. Because later it will get back to you. You did not tell them, you did not explain to them. So it's a very bad place to be at, especially as he was talking of the legal aspect of it, even having to drag the children to court so that they can make a decision. Who do you want to go with? Who do you want to remain with? It's not a really good place or situation for the children. So these are things that it happens because the parents are hurting, the parents are in pain. Mm-hmm. And the kind of advice we give, even when going through this, just go through it when you feel your emotions are, you're calm, so that you don't react or respond to situation due to how you're feeling, because you might, at the same place, hurt the other person and hurt the people involved, and children included. So before even you make a decision of what to do, because we say the divorce is like a finality, so it's not something that you'll just rush and say, I want to divorce. Take your time in the separation space as you make a decision. Have I actually made a decision, I want to go this direction?
Then, sorry to cut you short, are there cases where maybe one of the parties, either the husband or the wife, put on the table the idea of a divorce, but then maybe, again, through the whole mediation and all that, and again, the whole, I'm pretty sure you've come across this, maybe one of them is told, and maybe mostly really applies to even the wives, they're told, vumilia, marriage inakuanga hivi, So after the whole idea of divorce was put on the table, later on, it is removed, and then they continue. But then again, with the whole hardships.
I would say something. I will give an example. And this, it's a lawyer friend of mine who, again, the family lawyer was saying, I interviewed them on some program somewhere else. And she's been to court many times. And she tells me there are cases where there is a divorce proceeding in court. It's gone all the way. It's probably just about the point of judgment. And the same two people, the two warring parties, come together, decide they have changed their mind. They are reconciling. And they have literally, in fact, the court requires you go to court and you officially notify the court that you've changed your mind. And she tells me she has witnessed at least some cases where they have been proceeding with the divorce, they have had several hearings, and then they just decide, we have changed our mind, we are not divorcing. And they come back and they reconcile.
Right.
So it is never, it's not, so divorcing of itself, it's, you would, let's say it's just one of those struggles that people have. Life is tough, okay? And by the time you take your partner to the courtrooms to divorce them, it's not a smile. Nobody is smiling, either yourself or the other person. And it can get very acrimonious, it can get very ugly. People.
But see, Wachira, even as you say, you've gone all that, and then these two people say, what, let's to suluhisha maneno kwingine. After all this, you've gone to court, everything, and all that, you've spent money. Now, kids are involved here. And you've been telling them, what, and I mean, these kids have been seeing, hey, mom and dad are not really, talking to each other and all that. What does this do to, I'll start with you, Percy. What does it do to the kids now, after they have seen mom and dad going through all this, and then later on, they see, okay, they're fine. So maybe they're left, in the hanging, maybe later, maybe they're good right now, but after this 3 months, wataanza tena vita.
No, of course, every divorce has a very major psychological and social implication. She's an expert in that area, and I think she can speak into that.
Yeah.
But I would say that there's no divorce that does not cost the parties, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. And so if the two parties change their mind, that actually is a big bonus. That's why, and that's the place now where prayer comes in. That's where counseling comes in. And I'll tell you, I know pastors who have divorced, or rather, this is not even a divorce. I mean, I'm talking about somebody. I have somebody in mind who have. I have in mind. They have 3 children. The wife decided to leave. She had threatened to leave and left 7 times. So the last one she left. So this man, he's alone right now, and he's a pastor. So what do you do? So that's the reality, right? Another pastor, he struggled. They separated 10 years later. He decided he's going to remarry, and we supported that. We said, no, it's okay. And now he's happy married. Of course, there are questions about the custody of the son they had. But my counsel to this man of God is, look, go through. It's a thorn in the flesh. Marriage produces a very bad experience. But I think from a pastoral point of view, if you have to go through marriage, be ready to bear the pain, the shame, the drama, and whatever it is, whatever it will cost you.
Right.
But if you take care of if you go to God, He can heal you, restore you, and you can be a force for good.
Right.
But if you internalize the bitterness and the pain and the frustration, and you never seek redress, repentance, reconciliation, and from God, first of all, as an individual, marriage, just like any other thing, bad thing that can happen to anyone, can break you and completely devastate you, but you can also find healing. So there's nobody who cannot find healing. And healing does not necessarily mean you reconcile with your wife or husband.
Okay.
You can find healing and find a place of, to come in terms and say, okay, he lives his life, I live my life. I've found peace with God. I've repented of my sins, whatever I did to, behind the divorce and all that. So each person can recover,
right.
because there is a place God brings healing and help. Yeah. So, but psychological support, she knows how to work it out.
And we should, as you come in, as a counseling psychologist, I had mentioned earlier about Marta's kids. They have seen mom and dad go through all this, and then later on they decide that they're going to talk out of court all this. What does it do to these kids, let alone even the parents? What does it do to these kids?
Okay, for those who know me, they know I'm very big on childhood trauma. Mm-hmm. And what do we say? What makes you, apart from genetic, another thing is the environment that you grow or you grew up in, and most probably your home, how you're brought up by your parents. Because as a child, you tend to pick, all what happens in your family of origin. Uh-huh. So if the environment is good, if your parents are treating each other well, that is what you'll grow knowing. That's how an ideal environment is supposed to be. And on the other side, if the environment is toxic, the child, they are growing, and at a certain age, it's when their mind is developing. They tend to pick the ideal situation is having toxicity in a relationship. Yeah. So you can imagine as that child grows, even when they get to an age of getting into relationships and marriage, that is all they know. And we've gotten to a point of having to help people who are suffering a lot because of what they picked from their home of origin, how they were brought up. Because for them, they knew, for love, love to them is about fighting, is about shouting, is about that. And that is what even they'll tend to do to their partner, So we tend to really help them undo that, because that is what was installed in them. That is what an ideal environment is supposed to be, because these are your parents. For you, it's about love, and that is how you have seen love to be. Mm-hmm. So it really gets to damage the children. And that is why we normally guide or advise the parents, when you are going through that, keep the children out of it. Try to solve your issues, amicably, without involving them, because the kind of damage you are doing to them, you might not see it that time, but later these children, they really struggle in their relationships and in their marriages. And even the perception about the other gender changes a lot. You find there are people who cannot really keep up with the other gender because of what they saw happening. Yeah, so children, they really need to be guarded and from what is happening, especially in a toxic marriage. And there's one thing I would want to mention, that even a lot of parents make a mistake. And they say, I'm staying in this marriage because of the children. They have identified this marriage is not good. There's a lot that it's happened. There's a lot of toxicity. But I'm staying because of the children. But that is the worst mistake you can do. Because, yes, because you are destroying them. You're destroying their future, because you are staying because of them, but the environment is not conducive. So you'd rather take them out, as Pastor was saying. They can see their father at the side very happy. They can see their mother at the side very happy. Give them that access. They can actually get the benefit of seeing their parents, but seeing them in a good environment when they are happy, other than having them here and all what you're doing is fighting, exchanging words, and all manner of things that will get to affect them as they grow.
And how about the whole notion of my kids are probably maybe in school, maybe they're still teenagers, maybe they're really still young, maybe 10-year-olds. So let's stay in this marriage until maybe they're out of our house. So when they're out, then now we can split. Is that
That's really not the right thing as well, because that period you are staying, meaning there's a lot that is happening that is not good. Okay. And you haven't closed their eyes. They are seeing, they can feel, they can experience what is going on. You know, so even for the shortest period they are able to pick what is happening. So you'd rather have them out other than staying for the sake of just having, to take them through school. And there's one thing even I would mention there that many parents even today, they are really regretting. You stayed assuming that you are giving your children the best, since perhaps, the other parent is doing well, they can provide school fees in a good school, right. They can see, they are in a good home and all that, everything is provided. Like, let me stay for that sake so that they can enjoy all these things here. Yeah. But at the end of it, the kind of damage that has happened to these children, so it's not about what they can get. It's not about the properties, the money, or the good school. There's a lot about, who they are and what makes them. Okay. And I think that's most important than anything, the material things. Okay. Yeah.
But see, I was seeing you laugh on that bit. But then we're really out of time, and I really want to also talk about one of the largest population that we have, the young people. So even as you come in, there is always, the word on the street is that people who marry as young as they are, maybe even as young, in their early 20s, they tend to divorce more. That's really a word on the street there. It's always a whole talk even on the internet. Maybe you can also chime in on that. I'll also get feedback from Wachira on that. But then your view on also the whole bit of staying until your kids are out of the house.
Okay, this whole idea of protectionism, the idea that children need to be protected from the vagaries of life, I don't subscribe to that, because, whether it's a fight, a divorce fight or something like that, children will be exposed to all manner of problems. That's the reality of living. And of course, I know there is the environmental socio-conditioning theory about, people are products of their environment and all that. It's not 100% the case, because we know people, look at Alfred Mutua. Dr. Mutua is an orphan. Yeah, and here he is. He's a very successful Kenyan. So your environment may have an influence on, your growing up and all that. They may shape a lot of things. But you can actually, human beings have capacity. And not only capacity, of course, God has a way of bringing healing. And that's why the essence of the good news is that any form of brokenness can be healed. So young people who are, say, for example, maybe just because, okay, fine. So you saw your parents fight off. Every time they had a quarrel, they fought. So you get married, and then if a fight comes up in your marriage, you think, oh, this is the signal. This marriage will never work. That is not necessarily a solution. Okay. So I wouldn't tell young people that if you're fighting because your parents also had fights in their marriage, then it means that you're going to have to divorce. No, it doesn't have to follow. You can work through that. You can find healing and help and grace. And that's the essence of the gospel. The gospel is about sinners finding grace. So I think it must start from that point of, knowing nobody is a hero. And you cannot isolate yourself from problems, And, for example, my own sister, she struggled through her marriage, and that's the first person to get married properly in our home. Okay. Was our sister in the 70s, I'm telling you. So, and we really thought that was a great thing. But then later on, it was bumpy and all that, but she stayed. Well, her children are all grown anyway. So, but I would say, yeah, it was a bad experience, and she did what she needed to do. But I would say that now I cannot say I have every right to internalize that trauma. Fortunately, my parents never had to go through that, and so I would say maybe I'm blessed by that. But as a pastor, I know that anyone who comes to me and describes the pain, the traumas of their early upbringing, there is an answer for that. So, and I think that's the message I want to go out there. Yes, counseling will help, but you can find grace and healing.
because of time, I'll take that as your last word. Even as you have your parting shot, you could also clarify for us, briefly, in a few seconds, if marrying young also leads to having a divorce.
Yeah, studies have it that when you marry young, you tend to divorce easy compared to the people who married when they're a bit old, perhaps in their 30s.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I associate with that, you see, perhaps at 20s, what happens, your brain is still developing. You haven't actually gotten to a point of knowing exactly who you are, what you want to do with life. So by the time perhaps you get into marriage in that age, by the time that's getting to dawn on you that I was meant to be this and not that, you'll even find that even you relating with the other person will be difficult, since perhaps you didn't experience money, since or rather pursuing your career, but you got into this point that now money has come, you want to pursue this, there's a marriage here, there's a baby here, you can imagine all that. So normally even what we say, you'd rather try, just allow yourself to develop fully to a point you understand who you are, because I know I'm so big on authenticity as well.
Okay.
And even not losing yourself, being you, because when you are you can give the best to that marriage, to that relationship.
Right.
And when you are not you, you'll try to fake life. So try to allow yourself to grow to that point when now even you are getting into the marriage, you are getting into it, giving the full benefit of who you are, and you understand who you are. And perhaps now, while you gave me an opportunity just to wrap it up.
In a few seconds.
Yes, in a few seconds, I would want to say this. Ultimately, the most important relationship that you can save is the relationship that you have with yourself.
Okay.
Yes, so do not lose you.
Asante sana. Those are really wise words. Even for us who are not yet into the whole marriage institution, we have learned a thing or two, or maybe even 20. Asante sana, Pastor Geoffrey Gishuki.